With 25 years of building scalable global businesses, he's been simplifying complexity, eliminating chaos, amplifying growth by focusing on technical systems managed by humans. Garrett Delph, CEO, and generally all-round good egg. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Leadership That Sells podcast, where we help you lead first and sell more with great insights and tactics from the best minds we can find. Every leader is in sales, whether you're selling products, ideas, a mission or a vision, and great sales team in particular need great sales leaders. When managers bring out the best in their teams, targets get hit on time every time without stress. But most sales leaders never learn how to lead. They wing it or they repeat bad habits and the cycle continues. Sales leaders need practical, real-world ideas that fit their busy schedules, and that's why we created the Leadership That Sells Playbook course. 9 short weeks changes your world. Check it out at the Practical Leadership Academy. And now, on with the show.
Hey, Paul. Thanks so much. Really great to be here.
That was far too concise and condensed. Would you mind elaborating slightly?
Well, sure. At the end of the day, I'm in this season of life now with my current business, Clarity Ops, because I have ultimately determined, in my humble opinion, that the differentiator in business, that the catalyst for success, the key to breaking through the good old stat 9 out of 10 businesses fail, is to get into the engine room of business, which is classically operations, and architect it for sturdiness and durability. It's even a foundational principle, so that people, because in business it's all about people, are clear about what to do and how to do it and where to go. And I found that, again, in my opinion, in building business and working with lots of people, that's where the magic happens, And if you get that right, typically all of the dependencies on that get more aligned, unified, accurate, and strong. And that's maybe a 90-second unpack of everything that's going on.
And that was great having you on the show. Thank you very much indeed. Good night. Well, hang on. The operational engine room, right?
Yeah.
Engine room of success. There's the idea that an average idea expertly executed will outweigh a great idea poorly executed. So the challenge, I think, sometimes is building something that you think is overly complicated, or building this engine room and keeping it simple, keeping it functional, keeping it doing what it's meant to do.
That's good.
But then this link that you just made between whatever that engine is and the people who are making it work has to be crystal clear. The clue's in the name of your business: Clarity Operations, Clarity Ops, right?
That's right.
And I would imagine 9 times out of 10, business problems are down to communication. It's down to lack of communication, or inexpert communication, or poorly understood objectives through communication, lack of clarity.
There you go.
Lack of clarity. Right?
There you go. Yeah. I have a quick comment on that.
Go on.
I agree, by the way, with your statement about the communication portion. But maybe a good synonym, at least for my focus for communication, is guidelines and instructions. I really believe that for the success businesses want, there's been a tremendous amount of energy and focus on leadership, rightly so, because leadership is a critical path, but a almost ignored or heavily de-emphasized focus on systems And so when I'm going to tie this to communication, I think that great leadership needs great system, and great system needs great leadership. They are one. And so if you have great communication from leaders to the people they lead and the businesses they lead, but you have systems that are either non-existent or poorly defined, the best communication in the world has no chance. Because at the end of the day, those leaders still lead their people into a world of chaos, of lack of definition, lack of clarity. And so that suddenly that great communication dissolves and disappears and gets slurped up by this black hole of no ingredients, no instructions.
It's a symbiotic relationship, isn't it?
It is.
Great systems need great leadership, which needs great systems, which needs, that's the thing, right? So the thing I just scribbled down here, you're talking about guidelines and instructions, was what to communicate. Communicate about what they're supposed to be doing. Communicate the rules, the edges of where they should be, what the overall goal is. Let people do their jobs, make sure the system, all these are good things. I mean, you're talking about, I'm trying to extend an analogy here, and I should have probably made one up, but ingredients. Maybe there's something about you're trying to bake a cake. Right?
I think it's a great analogy, actually.
Bake a cake.
Very, very simple.
You've got the ingredients in front of you. You've got the recipe in front of you, but you're missing some of the ingredients. Ain't gonna work. You got all the ingredients, but you're missing the recipe. You can wing it, but it's probably not gonna work,
Yeah. Yeah. And that recipe often includes things like specifics about how you stir, when you stir, how long you bake, how long you allow things to sit, when you mix, when you don't mix, how you mix, what things get mixed together, what things should not get mixed. Right? If you're trying to build a great business around a great cake, you cannot afford variance once you've come up with the perfect recipe.
Yeah.
Can't. Otherwise, you lose quality, you lose speed, and then you lose control.
Absolutely. If this clarity of purpose, clarity of execution, of guidelines, of instructions is what's needed from good leaders, my question, my challenge, I think, is that sometimes, most of the time, when I'm advising or working with people, I'm being asked to deliver that clarity. Where do I get it from? Where do I start?
As a Paul, so I understand the question. You get asked as a hired consultant to bring the clarity for them. Is that the question?
Yeah, to try and understand what the problems are. I think this is partly, it's kind of what I understand Clarity Ops is really good at. You go in, you determine what the challenges are and turn them into the opportunities because you bring clarity.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's twofold, and we both understand this, the discovery process to identify problems. I always like to go in expecting that business owners or C-suite think they know what the problem is. Usually they understand symptoms, but they don't understand the root of the problem. Yeah. So I always go in kind of remembering that. First thing I like to do is figure out what are the outcomes they're looking for. What product or service are they ultimately wanting to deliver, and what does that look like? And then I like to back into that and figure out what is it they're doing to get those dream outcomes or sort of successful deliverables. Maybe just to cut to the chase, here's where it always leads to. It typically leads to lack of control in the people, process, and performance requirements to deliver that outcome. I think those are three core pillars to any business that if you align those correctly and organize them structurally, they will always, in my opinion, if you put the right elbow grease into it, deliver the outcomes for the business. The root of all of that, in my humble opinion, is living in the DNA of the job description. When you assemble all of the people in a business who are hired to collectively do their roles for a unified outcome, really inside of there is the DNA of the instructions for each role and title, which, as it turns out, is where most businesses pay no attention to. They hire for title, but they don't define what those people should do and how those key focus areas collectively unify and align to the outcome of the business.
Okay.
And
if you're listening on the podcast, sorry, I have to interrupt you, but if you're listening on the podcast and you're not watching my confused, tortured face right now, about to say, Garrett, go back and say that again in words of one syllable. I think we just hit something really interesting. Go. Right?
You want me to reshare?
I want you to recap that.
Okay.
One more time, just for my own.
Okay, sure. At the end of the day, what I see time and time again is the root of the problem is generally related to what I call the DNA of the job description. It is, if we think about it, a fruit seed, and all of the DNA inside of that fruit seed, it's all of those micro instructions that produce the fruit. And I believe that in a business, it is the job description and all of its instructions correctly aligned with and unified with the rest of the job descriptions that work together for the collective output of the business, which is why we were talking earlier about the engine. You got all these 100 moving parts, and those are built to synchronize together as one when they all unite for its strong, accurate momentum forward. And if they're not synchronized and they're not designed to work together, you have a broken down vehicle.
Right. I have a 1972 MG midget. It's bright red. And it's because it's been loved by many, many different people. It's been repaired and enhanced in many different ways over the last 52 years.
Sure.
To the extent where many of the original bolts and nuts and screws and things are what we call in this country imperial dimensions, so inches and sixteenths. Okay. And quite a few of them are metric.
Okay.
Almost in the same thing. So you try and take the bonnet off, the hood off of the car, half of the bolts are, you have to use an inch-based spanner, and the other half you're on millimeters. And it does my head in. So the two things they can coexist, but not healthily. And I think your point is that if you've got lots of different things, lots of different moving parts, and they're not aligned, they're not aware of each other to a greater or lesser extent, they're not coordinated and unified.
That's right.
You're going to have some crunched gears and some bits of mechanical wonder left in the road behind you as you're turning the corner onto the highway. How do you go about lining these up then? What's your first step in saying, you've identified it, but now what do we do?
Yeah. Well, it's one thing I mentioned earlier is the business needs to really be clear about what it's trying to deliver, I think. Typically, at least on my side, when I get involved, businesses already have established product market fit. So they understand their market, they understand the personas they're serving, and have a general sense of the thing that they're producing, right? Along the way, stuff broke down. And so, but I always like to start there again and make sure everybody is unified. That is what we're trying to produce. That's what we want. And then from there, back in and start understanding, okay, what are the symptoms of what's currently not working? Are you slow to market? you have quality issues. You start looking at customer success, CSAT numbers. Are people complaining? Do you have defects? Do you have variance in your deliverables? These sorts of things typically will lead us and guide us to where things are. You have gaps, things that are missing. A lot of times, early on, businesses get to where they're at without having classic benchmarks, to control speed and quality for all of the different executables. That takes some time to fix, but once you fix it, it's pretty amazing what happens. The amount of control that you get for whatever it is, your service or product that you're delivering. Another thing that I usually is kind of a no-brainer go-to is looking at the org chart and understanding what we know as decisions rights. Who is making what decisions, who reports to who owns what. And typically, especially for businesses that have had some growth, that is horribly imbalanced and missing, and needs a right sizing and load balancing mechanism to get realigned for people in the org, vertically and horizontally. That is a really, really healthy exercise, I've found. Like I just finished an engagement about an hour and a half north of here for a construction business. They're doing $65 million a year and bleeding $2 million a quarter, and they couldn't figure out why. And within a week, I was able to demonstrate to them how their leadership was horribly upside down. They had they have regions, right, within the state. And those regions essentially should be operating exactly the same because they pretty much have the same work going to them. But you had one leader with the same type of job, had 22 people reporting to him directly. In the other region, he had 7. Same work, same demands, but the business, the board, and the CEO were only paying attention to finances, not paying attention to operations. Very classic. And so the CFO gets really confused about why the numbers aren't moving because they try to solve operational problems with finance levers. And this, right? And
Wrong
so
tools for the job.
Yeah, totally. And I get it. I get it. Because operations is tricky. The engine room is tricky. But anyways, your question was like, how do you solve this stuff? And some of these things, I just shared are typically reoccurring time and time again. That this is where they live.
So you've got misaligned roles. You've got upside down org charts. You've got 14 people report. I've seen that. I saw Ben once, and one guy had 22 people reporting to him. He's like, do you have one-to-ones? Why? Oh, okay, let's start there. But I couldn't possibly have that because it would take me 45
all year
per person to do a one-to-one, which means I've got no time left. And I've got too many people reporting to me, don't I? Yes. What are we going to do about that? I could promote this person. Good stuff. Okay, let's start there. Yeah, these are great conversations to have. They're great conversations to have.
Yeah, I agree.
Focusing on technical systems. Now, is that technical as in moving parts or technology, but managed by humans, rather than what I'm trying to get to? What's the question I'm trying to ask here? I'm trying to work out what's the place of the human in the technology-focused, navel-gazing worlds that we have. And if you're in the operational engine room, there's such a deep tech stack in most companies.
Yeah.
You're moving from 4 or 5 different systems to get one thing done.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's the role of the human in trying to simplify? My go-to is problem solving is rarely done by adding things. You rarely, if ever, make things work better by adding something. Normally work better by subtraction, by taking things away, especially in a scaled or scaling company that has grown rapidly over time. So you see some organization, I'm sure you've had it. How do you amplify the role of the human?
I agree with you, by the way, about subtraction, because typically when businesses get in trouble, it's because they're bloated. So I just wanted to comment on that. I agree 100%. The tech stack thing is fascinating. And increasingly, by the way, we both realize that tech and people are one. You know,
We're cyborgs. If you don't think so,
yeah.
look in your pocket at your phone.
Yeah. Well, I hate to, no, I don't hate it, but I'm going to repeat myself. The business needs to understand what it's trying to do. Like you really need
You can't
to
repeat that
understand.
enough. You can't repeat that
Yeah,
too many times.
I appreciate that, and I agree. And just needs to understand its value proposition to the market, its value proposition to the customers, and what it wants to produce. And then you got to back in and figure out what needs people, and, hands-on human brains, human activity, and what human activity should be supplemented with technology for the right output. And there's a lot of variables that go into that, because sometimes you have minimal runway, right? A minimal runway, and or you have minimal cost. And so as much as it might be more efficient in in the long term to focus on a technology solution, in the short term you don't have the runway to build that, right? So you have to only use humans. Sometimes you actually have to delay liftoff because you need the technology to build a solution that's going to be accurately aligned with your outcomes. So that's always, I think, the best metaphor for me to figure out, when do you leverage and build tech to support your outcomes, and when do you postpone? Understanding those,
Okay, yeah.
those concepts. Does that make sense, Paul?
It does. I can see that. As a random aside, not that I like to try and predict the future, because it's very easy to predict the future. It's hard to do it accurately. I reckon in terms of the tech stack human breakdown thing, I reckon we are 5 years away from seeing $1 billion company with 5 people in it.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that at all. I would add, I still think for that to happen, you need kind of two bulls. You need a very, very, very savvy tech founder and a very savvy visionary operator.
Yeah.
I think those two are critical. A great visionary these days without strong, really deep-rooted tech chops, even with the advent of text to code, I just think there's going to be the dependency on a technical founder that understands the engine of technology to really, give it that capability.
Yeah. I mean, there's some stuff actually came out. Again, we're kind of going rabbit holing here, but there's an interesting one came out. I think it's Microsoft bought GitHub, and it was some of the stats in GitHub around productivity, so code productivity, and they weren't looking at what's called K-blocks, thousands of lines of code, right? But they were looking at the commits and the pushes to production. So code that was pushed to production. So you had lots of commits made by the Copilot and the assistant tools.
Yes.
But no greater number of pushes to production. So it says people were building the stuff. It's great. Didn't bloody work. Right?
Yep.
So it's the context again. It's this. As you goes back to your concept of the interlocking elements. Everything needs to work together. So the
Yeah,
pump
and
something into the
understanding how
system
they
and
work.
break it.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
yeah. Like, have you heard of some of these new Replit and Bolt.new? Have you heard of these? These are
Replit, I've heard
basically,
Replit, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and another one out there. It's Bolt.new. So these are for the lay that you give text prompts and they build stuff for you.
Mm.
And it does, support the narrative you just shared, supports the narrative I just shared, that you can only get so far, and then you're back to, okay, I need an engineer.
Yeah. Would you mind trying to scale this and plug it into my AWS that I don't understand?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I've been to many, many, many reInvent conferences, which is the AWS conference, and they don't get easier.
No.
They get more and more sophisticated.
I used to have a Microsoft certification. I was an MCP, Microsoft Certified Professional for Internet Information Server.
Okay.
IIS-4, running on, might not even have been Windows 2000, but it could have been NT. Anyway, I'll just go and chisel off my box of stone.
Did you say Microsoft 2000? That's
before 2000.
okay. Oh man.
NT, Windows NT. There you go.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, isn't this fascinating? We're gonna look back on this era of tech, and it will be like horse and buggy, unless the Lord comes back before then.
Which is entirely possible.
Which is very
End
possible.
times. It is. Actually, no. I was talking to a visiting pastor who came to my church, and she was saying she gets asked frequently, "Is this the end times? Because we're seeing this. There's things in the Middle East. We're seeing, drones, clouds of." And she said, "Well, ever since he left, it's been the end times." Very good point.
Very good point.
Very trickily done, that one.
Very good point.
I like it.
Yes.
Yeah. If he does make it back in the meantime, well, maybe we'll be able, we'll avoid having to use Windows 2045, because I bet you will still be using Word. Bet you will.
Yeah, that's one program that still is pretty great to use.
There you go.
Yeah.
What are you working on right now?
Yeah. Working on a project called Convergent Leadership 360. And this really is purposefully, proactively taking solutions to our clients that by design take great leadership principles and combine them with system-based tools. And out of the gate, our narrative is your leaders need systems if you're going to succeed. And those systems are going to need your leaders to flex them, update them, change them, coordinate them. And now we get into the flywheel. And, even for me as a, operator, as a consultant, I've often gone in and only focused on operations. And my aha moment over the years has been, you have to have them both. And so now what I'm doing is purposely focus on a holistic solution. And that's convergent.
Convergent's a good word. It's talking back to the symbiosis of great systems needing great leaders, needing great systems. And you kind of provide the whole thing together. That's very interesting. We'll look forward to seeing where that comes. And where can we find you? I found your Medium already. If you like Medium, go check out Garrett's Medium. It's excellent. The links will all be in the descriptions of this this cast. Where can we find you when we need you, Garrett?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Well, I'm on LinkedIn, so my handle is my first name, last name, Garrett Delph. And then, of course, online, clarityops.co. If you go to .com, you'll go somewhere else. I think that domain was like $50,000.
Don't do that.
I figured I'll wait on that one.
I keep getting somebody coming to me and saying, "Would you like paulmorton.com?" And I said, "Well, that could be quite nice. How much?" $26,000. Not that much. Not that much. If you Google Paul Morton, you find Bishop Paul Morton,
Oh,
some wonderful gospel pastor with a fabulous singing voice. He's all over YouTube. Anyway, last question for you as we wrap up then. If you had one message you could share with the world, 10,000 billboards, and you could write one thing on all over the world, everyone would see it, what would it be?
yeah. I'll have to preface, there's a nice little list, but if I could only choose one, it it would say God is good.
Yeah.
God is good. And I think that simple statement, because like I said, my tendency is to drop a big long sentence or two or three, but I think that one most would remember and would get them thinking about the goodness of God.
I can't go anywhere from that other than to say, Garrett Delph, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you, Paul. It's been a real treat. I appreciate you having me on.